Science Today. Now, on our social media pages, it's Joy Learning TV, and then Instagram is Joy_Learning TV. Okay, let's continue with our topic. So we are going to talk about the properties of solution. Properties of solution. The first one is that particles in a solution do not settle. Whenever you have any solution, particles in them do not settle. The particles here means that the solute content of it do not settle. You know why? Because whenever you have a solution, there is always a tendency of the solvent and then the solute having what is called a uniform mixture. That is, its homogeneity. So what happens is that they do not settle. The second one is particles in the solution spread evenly through the mixture. So particles are everywhere. It's not like they are gathered at a particular place. They are everywhere. Third one is tiny particles form the solution. Fourth is solution remains the same when it is passed through a filter paper. The particles are actually so tiny to the point that when you take them through filter paper, they just come back into the container. And then they do not also disperse light. That is because they are so tiny with the smallest atomic structure you can never think about. All right, let's go to types of solution. Now we know what a solution is. So let's try and find out the types of solutions we have. Now, there are three main types of solutions. Three main types. There's another one, but that is not actually a type of solution. I'll explain to you when we get there. The first one is what is called a dilute solution. Dilute solution. Look at this. How would you feel when you want to cook rice and then you pour salt into your water? And then the salt in the water is just too much, and then you use it in boiling your rice. How do you think it will taste? It's going to be very bad because you wouldn't like it. Now, a dilute solution is a solution that contains less amount of solute as compared to the solvent. So that is mostly what we use in cooking. For example, cooking rice, cooking yam, cooking plantain, and the rest. You just need a bit of salt in large quantity of water, and then you are good to go. Then we have what is called a concentrated solution. This is just the opposite of the first one we discussed, that is a dilute solution. In this content, what happens is that there is more solute, which is to be dissolved in a smaller amount or quantity of solvent. So when you check them up, what happens is that you have so much solute in a smaller quantity of solvent. So when you taste it, you can actually tell that it is salty or it is sugary. The third one is what is called saturated solution. Saturated solution. This is a type of solution that cannot dissolve any more addition of solute at a given temperature. So, whatever you do to this, the solution there cannot actually dissolve any more solute at a given temperature. So, when I fetch salt or when I fetch sugar into a container of water, I've taken more salt, I add more salt to it to the point whereby the water in there can no more dissolve any additional salt being placed. So it means that the whole solution there is saturated. So at that temperature, it can't happen unless it is heated. Heat is the only way by which the molecules in the water becomes lighter, they expand, and then they have the ability to dissolve more solutes. So at a given temperature, they can't. But when it's applied, it is very, very possible. The other one I was talking about is what is called aqueous solution. Aqueous solution. Now, whenever we talk about aqueous solution, just a type of solution whose solvent is water. So whenever you have any solution whose solvent is water, then it means it's an aqueous solution. For example, salt and then water, sugar and then water and the likes. But when I have milk and then sugar, even though there is a bit of content of water there, but then the milk itself is just too much, or the powder is just too much. So you can actually call that aqueous solution. Now we go to classification of solutions. Classification of solution. Just as we did with liquids, or just as we did with mixtures, same thing happens here. Now, the first is what is called homogeneous solution. This is a type of solution that has the same uniform composition and appearance within the entire solution. So it is just like we had with homogeneous mixtures. So with here, homogeneous solution just simply means that there's no clear distinction between solid particles and then solvent particles. Yes. And then we have what is called heterogeneous solution. Heterogeneous solution. This is a type of solution in which there is a clear difference between the solute and the solvent, which forms the mixture. So this is a clear difference. Whatever you have there to form, or whatever you have that's a solution, there is a clear difference between the solid particles and then the solvent particles. An example here is sand and water. Sand and water. Whenever you pour sand into water, there's always a clear distinction because the sand will never dissolve in the water. So you see the salt, or you see the sand at a place, and then the water too at a different place. Now we go to dissolving. 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 This refers to the process whereby a solid completely disappears from a solvent. Where a solid completely disappears from a solvent. And it can also be referred to the time it takes for a solid to completely dissolve in a solvent. So in other way, if you don't want to say the process by which a solid completely dissolves in a solvent, can also mean that the time that it takes for a solid to vanish from a solvent. Now, if you want to reach us, the line is 03022111698. The number again is 03022111698. Another one is 03022111699. Again, 03022111699. Now, let's try to actually find out the rate, or what are the factors that affect the rate of dissolution or dissolving. So what happens is that whenever you want to dissolve something, now whenever a solvent completely disappears from a solid, we say that is called dissolving. So what actually causes the solute to actually disappear from the solvent in the shortest possible time? The first one is amount of solute. The smaller the amount of solute within the solvent, the faster the rate of dissolving, and the larger the size of the solute and the solvent, the slower the rate of dissolving. So whenever the size of the molecule is very small, all that it means is that the rate of dissolving is very, very fast, or faster, as compared to when you have a larger size of solute. Let me take an example. When a cube sugar is dropped into water, it will take a time for the cube sugar itself to break down in the water and then gradually dissolve in the water. So when you have the salt, that is, or the sugar that is not cube, but you put it into the water, it dissolves quite faster because the molecules or the particles are not compact, just as you have in the cube. Then you have size of, we have heating the mixture. So whenever a mixture is heated, what happens is that the solvent particles or the solvent component of the whole mixture expands. So it creates more avenue or more way to just dissolve it faster. It's just like when you have water and then you have salt and then you want it to dissolve faster. You only put it on fire and then it gets a bit of heat and then you see that it dissolves quite faster as when it is there is no heat application. Then we have size of particles. Particle sizes that are smaller dissolve faster than particle sizes that are larger. So this explains why powder substance dissolve faster than crystal substance. So when you have salt, the crystal ones actually will take time than the powdery ones. That is just because the size of the particle matters here. Then we have the amount of liquid. The larger or the more larger the quantity of liquid or solvent here, the rate or the higher rate of dissolving. So it means that when you have more water in there and you have a bit of sugar or salt, I'm always using sugar and salt because that is the common one that everybody here has seen before. So when you put a bit of water, sugar or salt into a bigger container of water, what happens is it dissolves very, very fast. The last but not the least is stirring. Hello, good afternoon, Samson. Good evening, Samson.
Hello, sir.
Hello, good evening. How are you?
I'm fine.
All right, let me hear your question.
Please, I want to ask you that. I want to ask you that.
Hello, Samson, go ahead. I'm listening to you.
I want to ask you one question.
Okay, Samson, go ahead.
You said solvent and solution.
The what? I can hardly hear what they're saying.
Can I see the difference between solvent and solution?
Okay. You're asking the difference between solvent and solution. Did I get it right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So whenever we talk about solvent, the solvent is what dissolves the solute. Okay. So a solvent will always dissolve a solute. So the solvent is like a liquid. Okay. Let's say water. Okay. So water here becomes the solvent. And then when I put sugar or salt into my water, and then the sugar or salt dissolves completely in the water, then I have what is called a solution. So a solution is a uniform mixture between a solvent and a solute. A solution is a uniform mixture between a solvent and a solute. Hello, Samson.
Hello, sir.
Where are you calling from?
Yes, sir. I have understood, but I want to. Hello, sir.
Hello, speak out. I can hear you loud and clear.
I want to ask another question.
Okay, where are you coming from? Where are you calling from anyway?
The classification of solutions.
Yes.
I want to see how to pronounce that word.
Okay, the first one is a homogeneous solution.
Okay.
Homogeneous solution. And the second one is heterogeneous solution. So homogeneous solution means that there's no clear difference between the solvent and the solute. And then the heterogeneous means that there's a clear difference between the solvent and then the solute. Is that okay?
Yes, sir.
Where are you calling from, Samuel?
Please, I'm calling from a welcome.
Okay. Thank you so much for calling. All right. So we were on stirring before something came on the line. Now let's go to stirring. Now, whenever a solute is placed or poured into a solvent and then you stir, as you stir, what happens is that you increase the rate at which the solute will actually dissolve in the solvent. So you help it because you are stirring, it gives way for any other liquid somewhere or anywhere to just get dissolved in the whole thing. But when you leave it for a while, it's going to take so much longer. More than. Hello, Daniel. Good evening. Okay. Hello. So bad. Okay. So that is that. So the more you stir a solution, the quicker the rate of dissolving. Now let's go to suspension. Suspension, colloids, emulsion, and then all that. Now, whenever we talk about suspension, this refers to a heterogeneous mixture in which the solid particles do not dissolve completely in a solvent, but remain temporarily within the mixture. So whenever we say suspension, it means that the particles of the solute are clearly seen in the mixture. So whenever you can clearly see them, then it causes what is called suspension. The particles in suspension are visible to the eye because they are larger in size. An example is when Milo is poured into chilled water. Hello, good evening.
Hello, good evening, sir.
Hello, what's the name and where are you calling from?
I'm called Cedric and I'm calling from Tekradi.
Okay, let me hear your question, please.
Sir, please, I want to ask you that the forms of solution.
Okay.
We said we have three main types: the concentrated solution, the dilute solution, and the saturated solution.
Yes.
Are there any types of them?
I can hardly hear you. Could you please talk a bit louder?
I said, sir, you said the forms of solution.
Yes.
We have the concentrated solution.
Yes.
And the saturated solution and the dilute solution.
Yes.
So I want to know whether there are other types of the solutions or these are the only types.
No, these are the main types that we have. But I told you that we have another one that is called aqueous solution. But the main type that we have is dilute solution, concentrated solution, and then saturated solution. We have another one which is called aqueous solution, but that is not one of the major types or classifications of solution. Is that all?
Yes, sir.
All right. Thank you. Okay, so we're talking about suspension. And I was saying that this is a clear, homogeneous mixture in which the solid particles are always visible in the mixture. So it means that the solid particles do not completely dissolve in the solvent. So it can be seen, and they are so clear. And I gave a clear example as you pouring Milo into very, very chilled water. What happens is that you see a bit of the Milo settling on top of the water. That's because the water itself is so cold. And when you use the same Milo in, say, very, very hot water, it doesn't happen. It doesn't happen. Just because whenever the Milo is poured into heated water, the molecules expand in the water and they can create an avenue to dissolve more. But when it's chilled, it doesn't happen that way. Hello, Princess. Good evening. And where are you calling from? Where are you calling us from?
Yes, I'm trying to Princess. I'm calling from Texas.
Okay. Can I hear your question, please? Princess, could you please lower the volume of your set? She's gone. All right, we go to colloids. Colloids. Now, this is a non-uniform mixture in which the particles of the solute are permanently suspended in the solvent. So this is a non-uniform mixture in which the particles of the solute are permanently suspended in the solvent. The particles of colloids are too small to the extent that they seem to form a homogeneous mixture. Now, with suspension, we saw that the particles of the solute are bigger, so it can be seen, and you see them moving around or settling on top of the water. When you come to colloids, the particles are just so small that if you're not careful, you might think they are forming a uniform mixture, but it's not. It is not. You see them plenty in there, just as when you have milk powder and you pour it into water. When you have milk powder and you pour it into water and you stir for a while, you see that it will form a very, very uniform mixture, but then it is not actually a uniform mixture. It gives you what is called colloids. Then we go to emulsion. Emulsion. Now, emulsion is the combination of immiscible liquids. Whenever we talk about immiscible liquids, we are talking about liquids that always show clear difference whenever they are brought together. And I gave you a clear example as water and then cooking oil. So whenever cooking oil is poured onto water, what happens is that the cooking oil will always come on top of the water, just because the water is denser than the cooking oil. Or for example, whenever you cook and then you are trying to wash your dishes, because the utensil or the saucepan contains a bit of oil, cooking oil, as soon as you pour the water in there, what happens is that all the oil comes on top of the water. That explains why the water is always denser than the cooking oil. Now, an example is a mixture of oil and water, like I said earlier. And then when the mixture is left to... Hello, Sylvia. Good evening. Where are you calling us from? Oh, so bad. When the mixture is left to settle, the difference becomes very visible when the water settles with the oil coming on top of the water. And like I told you, this explains why emulsion paint. So whenever you buy emulsion, we have emulsion paint and then we have oil paint. Now, emulsion paints are paint that are made of paint itself or dye itself and then water. So whenever you buy it, you see that the paint itself settles. When I say it settles, it means that you see a clear difference between the water and then the paint itself. So the best thing to do is that you must stir. Hello, Abigail. Good evening. And where are you calling us from?
Good evening, sir. Please, I'm calling from Obuasi.
Okay. Let me hear your question, please.
Sir, types of solution.
Okay. Type of solution. I said we have... Okay. Go ahead.
You said dilute solution.
Yes.
Sir, kindly explain it for me.
Thank you. I am Abigail. Whenever we talk about dilute solution, it simply means that it is a solution that has small amount of solute in relatively larger quantity of solvent. So if I have water and then if I have salt and I take a pinch of salt and I put it into a bowl of water, I have what is called dilute solution. And this is what we mostly use in cooking. You don't put so much salt in your food whenever you are cooking. So a bit of it and then get a taste of it. So it's just a small amount of solute and relatively larger quantity of solvent. Okay, so I was thinking about the emotion, and I was saying that, okay, emotion is the combination of immiscible liquids. So whenever two liquids are brought together, there's a clear difference between them, and that shows that these two liquids are what is called immiscible or immiscible liquids. It is the suspension of two different liquids, and we know what suspension is. A typical example is a mixture of oil and water, like I told you earlier. When the mixture is left to settle, the difference becomes very visible when the water settles with the oil coming on top of it. And like I told you, this explains why emulsion paints or water-based paints are to be stirred before its usage. Now, I'm giving you our social media platforms again, and it's Joy Learning TV, and then the Instagram is joy_learning TV. Always stay tuned to it because we have lots and lots and lots of science topics to treat with you. Next week, I'll be coming your way again on Monday. So stay glued to your seat, and then we'll have a nice day. If you have any questions, just bring them on board, and then we'll do that. Thank you so much.